hello everyone, my name is Jessica Domiczew and I'm an archaeologist at Heneb for the Dyfed region, and today I'm really excited to be talking to you about the work we've been doing in Old College in Aberystwyth as part of Aberystwyth University's redevelopment project. Now, for those who don't know where Old College is, it's just on the seafront opposite where the pier is and the arcade, and it's just to the northeast of the castle and also just in front of St Michael's Church. Now, the reason why we were there was because we were commissioned in 2022 by Andrew Scott, a building company, to carry out a programme of archaeological monitoring recording during their works there as part of the Old College redevelopment project run by Aberystwyth University, and the project's name is New Life for Old College, and the aim is exactly that. It's to bring the new Old College back to life for both businesses, students and the public. Now, this is a multi-million-pound project. It's got loads of different funders, and it is a massive undertaking. It's been going on for quite a few years. It should hopefully finish next year in 2026, and by the end of it there's going to be 143 functional rooms, so a massive undertaking. And this is just some of the things that they'll be doing. So Old College is split up into multiple buildings. So to the north we've got the Cambria. That's going to be a hotel with restaurants. We've then got the Old Villas 1 and 2 New Promenade, which is this pink building, which is going to be known as the atrium. It's going to be a public space, cafes in there. We've then got this big section, which is the northern wing, which is going to have cafes once again, lots of function rooms. There's going to be lecturing spaces, and down the south wing we're going to have business enterprise there, and spaces for university students. There's a lot going on as part of this redevelopment, and we've been there throughout the years. We've been watching whilst they've been excavating for services, taking down sort of not walls and things which aren't so safe, and some of the more modern stuff which isn't so great. And we've also been watching some works in St Michael's car park, so extending that for the project. But I can't really focus on all of that today. I can only focus on one bit, which is the work in this north wing. So remember that building where we are. But before I go into all that work that we've been doing, I just want to talk about the history of Old College. So then when we do get to our excavations, you'll be able to understand a bit better what we were seeing there. So as part of the project, Aberystwyth University have a bunch of people who have been doing in-depth research into the history of Old College. And in the North Wing, there should be an exhibition there which will showcase a lot of this and a lot of the finds that we've found. And also as part of this project, there had to be a heritage statement put together by, and it was put together by an architect firm called Austin Smith Lord, and they did a really good job at collecting a lot of historical documents and detailing that. So for those who don't know, Old College actually first started out as a summer holiday villa. It was built somewhere between 1791 and 1795, and it was built for someone called Sir Price, who was an aristocrat living in the city. And he knew quite a lot of wealthy people in the Aberystwyth sort of area, and he loved the coast. So he wanted to create something for a summer retreat for himself and also for his wife and his friends to visit. And this is quite unusual at the time, because at the time, wealthy people in the cities, when they wanted to go away for the summer, it's usually in their country retreat. The idea of seasiding hadn't come around yet. So Sir Price, when he was here, he wanted to construct a building that he felt was suitable for the landscape, and he thought Gothic style was that. And he wanted views of the castle, but also of the beach. So it's right up against the seafront there, as you can see in these pictures. And so for the work, he commissioned architect John Nash, who had recently moved to Carmarthen. John Nash hadn't really done this type of architecture before, so Sir Price actually had quite a lot of input into it. And then it's not until the turn of the 19th century when seasiding becomes a bit of a new trend, people move around a bit more, and more wealthy people come into this area. And as you can see from this picture, it's a bit later in the 1860s, you've got a lot more seaside hotels and buildings, and you can see Castle House still there in the 1860s. And I couldn't find a better older picture of it, but just here we've got the two villas, 1 and 2 New Promenade, which are still there now and being redeveloped. These were built in 1809. Now, Sir Price, in the following years, he did bring lots of friends over to this retreat, but over the years, as he got older, he spent less and less time here. And so he ended up renting out Castle House, apparently for quite an extortionate price. A lot of people complained about that. And Sally died in 1829. So the property got passed down to his son, Richard Price, who kept on renting the property until 1864, when he sold it to someone called Thomas Savin. And he was an entrepreneur and a railway entrepreneur. At the time in the 1840s, the railways were really booming. And around the 1860s is when we get the Aberystwyth to Machynlleth line, which connects Aberystwyth up with London and the Midlands. So more people were moving into this area. And Thomas at the time, he recognised that where the railways had been extended, there was more hotels being built at the end of them. And he wanted to be the person on the forefront in Aberystwyth. It's documented that he says he can view Aberystwyth being the Brighton of Wales. So, and he had this plan that he wanted to have a row of hotels along Cardigan Bay. But first of all, starting with Aberystwyth, with Castle Hotel in Aberystwyth. And so when he found that Castle House was for sale, he was absolutely delighted. Now, he was so eager to be in front of all his competitors that he commissioned the architect John Seddon to carry out the work. And it's said that he asked Seddon to come down to look at the site, then that evening to draw up some plans for the hotel, and the next morning, apparently, he started on site building the foundations. Don't know how true that is, but it was quite hasty, and Seddon didn't like this because he didn't use the materials he wanted and the designs that he liked. But he first started off with building, so this is Castle House. He first started off building this southern wing, which he wasn't so keen on. And as he was getting close to finishing the southern wing, Savin had bigger ideas and wanted this northern wing to be added on. Very large building. So Seddon agreed, and this is sort of one of Seddon's favourite projects. He was given financial free rein and was told to use whatever materials he wanted. So you'll find that a lot of stuff which we'll come across in our findings, you'll find that a lot of the Castle Hotel material was very substantial. And it was all going well until sadly in 1866. They didn't manage to finish the hotel. They didn't finish off the top floors or the roof, and it was because in 1866 there was an international financial crisis and Paul Savin went bankrupt. But luckily for Aberystwyth and for the site today, it was sold. Savin had to sell it, and it was bought for £10,000. It said that Savin had actually spent about £80,000 at this point on the project, so he made a massive loss. But £10,000 was just enough, or maximum amount, that the college council could purchase the building by, and they managed to get a lot of public funding to finish off the building and get it redesigned for university use. They did also get money from the government, £2,500 per year, which really helped. They did get Seddon back to finish off this work. Some people on the council were unsure of him because of his wild spending and the expensive materials he used, but they gave him sort of a strict financial budget that he had to stick to. It then finally opened on the 16th of October in 1872, and it had 3 teaching staff and 26 students. So it was quite a substantial building for that small amount of people at first, but then it grew and grew. They consistently had sort of financial stretch financially, but it grew and grew. It was becoming really successful until the tragedy of the 9th of July in 1885. So what had happened was the chemistry lab was on one of the top floors. Later investigations found that possibly there was some cotton that had chemicals on it which combusted and caused a oxygen canister to explode. And on that night it was really windy, so it blew it all the way through the building and completely destroyed that northern wing. And sadly, 3 people died during the fire. They were actually trying to save bits of the museum, items from the museum. The floor had collapsed and they'd fallen through. And because of how intense the fire was, it wasn't put out till near the end of the day, so they couldn't be saved. And there is a really good report that you can find online from that sort of date, which talks quite grisly about how the men were found, but also about the widows, the funerals, the investigations afterwards. So this could have been the end of the university, because the council for the university, they wanted to give up on the building. They wanted to build elsewhere, but Seddon, as soon as he heard about the fire, this was his sort of great project, he ran down and persuaded them that it would be cheaper to rebuild than to build elsewhere. They're still not so convinced, but the public really wanted the building to be rebuilt. So it was, once again, they commissioned Seddon, still with financial constraints, and Seddon came up with this new plan for the university. He created, in the middle of that north wing, what they call the quad today. So it's this building, this room with lovely sort of ceiling. And he also designed it like an Oxford, Cambridge college with these professor stairwells which go up to a range of different lecture rooms. So he proposed that and they went ahead. Work was going on great, but then the relationship between the council and Seddon broke down. And so Seddon was taken off the project and Charles Ferguson, another architect, was brought in, and he designed the library, and he also took down Castle House and rebuilt that as well. And he was fond of Seddon, so he kept in contact and used quite a lot of Seddon's sort of ideas. And then later on, turn of the 20th century, we start getting these modern outbuildings at the back, and then this is where sort of records of remodelling in the building get lost, but there is a lot of work that's carried out throughout the 20th century, mostly updating of services and putting in more modern stuff. So that is a very quick go through of the history of Old College. If anyone's interested in the more detail of it, Aberystwyth University do have more information on their website. So I wanted to do a quick background of the history so you can understand what we were finding. So we were working, this is that northern wing, and we were working in the eastern range. And this is going to be the new exhibition space. And as part of that, they wanted to do some remodelling of the flooring. So in the quad, in this space, they wanted to remove the floor. And when they did, we find the remains of the walls, which correspond, in pink here, to the bedrooms of Castle Hotel, which is really, really nice. And we think maybe these fireplaces as well relate to those bedrooms. We then just, whilst we've got the map here, Castle Hotel We know it's definitely got a passageway there. This wasn't labelled up on the map, but the architects, before we started work, thought that was a light well, which is important to remember for the next bits. So this is when we get to this bit of the building. As you can see, there's loads of rooms, and it was loads of rooms, but before I got there, they had knocked down a lot of the sort of more modern work, stud walls there. So it left us with this. The floor was concrete, and before we started, we had no idea what was going to be underneath these floors. There's no plans of the basement available. The only ones are sort of more modern plans, which have been put together. And this is what we've got. It's a massive building, and you think there's already loads of rooms. It's 7 stories high. There's already lots of rooms, and then we've got all these rooms down in the basement, and they all go throughout the south wing and further up as well. And this is the area we were looking at, and it's blank because we have no idea what's there. But when you walk into these rooms, you can see there's windows and openings blocked up here. So there was potentially something there. So what they did was a few trial holes, and they found that there were spaces underneath that concrete floor. They've been completely backfilled with material. They also found, though, a walkway running down here, which hadn't been backfilled. And when you go down into the basement in this room, there was a suspicious doorway that had been blocked up, so they opened that up, and they found an old walkway going through. So we're excited to find what was underneath. And this is when we started lifting up the concrete. Now, it's the way they usually in archaeology, if we just had this site and we were taking it down, we would take down the concrete first, then we'll take down the older sort of deposits, and then we'll be left with the walls and take that away. But because of the nature of the work, the timescales, and trying to get the machine in, they had to do it area by area. So and they had to take it all down at once. So I don't have very nice pictures of the whole, I don't have any pictures of the whole space completely open. It's mostly in these small blocks. And as you can see, we've got possible passageway, some rooms. This is where I think the light well was. And you can see there some more brickwork going on. So we could see there were bits and pieces. It's a bit blurry, but this is one of the backfilled passageways, just backfilled with stone. And what we found actually was we had this really thick sort of stonework and then topped off with this brick. And what we found was the actual really thick stonework corresponded with all the walls from the Castle Hotel plan. Bear in mind though, this is the ground floor and we're working on the basement, so it might be slightly different. But actually most of it sort of followed it quite well. And then here we're saying about the possible light well. As we were excavating those bits further, we noticed all along this wall, so on the sort of sea side, the western side, at equal spaces were these windows that were looking sort of out. And when you're in the basement, in some of the rooms, you could see these windows either blocked up. And this eastern range isn't an extension, it was all built as one north wing by Seddon. So this wasn't looking out into the street, it was looking out into something else. So I think this is showing that we have got a light well in this area. Now, most of the excavations went down to about 1.5 metres, but later on up to 80 centimetres. So actually we weren't able to explore the full depths of these spaces and whether or not, and sort of determine whether or not they really were rooms. We think they were, but we can't really sort of say that was certain. They did though in one area, they were interested in how far it goes down. So in one area, they did go and excavate against this wall, and they went down 3 metres and stopped. They found no floor, and they think we're starting to reach the foundations of the building. So it goes quite deep, and actually the base of that is sort of floor level of one of the basement rooms next door. So it is looking more like this is part of the some extra basement spaces. And then what it looks like has happened is they've built these walls, and at some time in the past, it then gets backfilled with this really compact, dark material, which really, it seems like soil, but it's got quite a lot of glass in there, fragments of pottery, animal bone, and the deposit is quite thick compared to the soil deposits we have, which we found when we were working outside. So we think actually it might be material that's been brought in at some time. We don't really have much dating evidence. The pottery is looking sort of late 19th, early 20th century, but they're only really tiny sort of fragments. So we're not so sure there. And then this dark stuff, it's all over the different places, in what the possible rooms, in the passageways. And then it seems to be sort of topped at about 90 centimetres below ground level across the whole sort of area. So in the light well, 90 centimetres deep, you get this slate sort of surface, and you can see there's a lip on the stone wall of where it's sort of been sort of bonded against there. And then elsewhere though, across the room, it's been capped with cement. And it's not everywhere, but there's certain bits and pieces, and we don't have any records of when this would have happened. So following on after the capping, we then start seeing more use of brick. We seem to have a lot more, we have some brick walls, we have some brick features, which I think date to the post-fire period, because a lot of these brick walls and brick features sort of follow the plans in red here of the post-fire designs by Seddon, including as well evidence for these professor stairwells. And this is where we start as well seeing that they start putting brick on top of the old castle hotel stonework. So here you can see you've got this old stonework and then brick. It's only about 2 or 3 courses above, but they seem to be doing it on all the main walls, and then there's a few extra just additional brick walls. And then in here in this sort of extra room at the end, this is actually the light well. You can see one of the windows here, it's all been bricked up, and then we have this stone wall sort of put in the middle of it, and this is where one of the professor's stairwells would have been. I think the brick arches that were found under the partition walls, I think those might date to the post-fire period as well, just because they seem to be bonded into the bricked up windows, and there's a couple of cases of that. And I think if they were contemporary, you wouldn't go to all that effort of putting in windows and then blocking it up by an arch. And if these arches sort of covered all the way across, it would just completely block out the windows all along that light well area. So I think the brickwork is from the post sort of fire period, but it's really hard to tell. And also in this area, it has been chopped and changed, loads of services going through, and pipe work. So it's been quite hard to put it together. This is one of sort of the brick features that was going through. It was very bizarre. It's sort of an arch. It runs the width of the, where was it? It was sort of the width of the room coming along there. Oop. And it was made of brick. This is one side of a partition wall, and that's the other side. And on the other side of the room, when we excavated, we found it had already been broken open, and there was a service that had been cut off. And when we excavated the rest of this, taking a bit of this away, there was a service going through. So we think it was designed for the service, but it's quite fancy. It also doesn't go into the basement or seen elsewhere, and it seems to butt up against one of those and blocking one of those windows in the light well. And then here, more evidence for the professor's stairwell. You've got this odd brickwork. Some of it's been destroyed when they later put in this manhole. And there was a pipe that ran all the way through here. I think they put that in the 20th century. And you can see some of the steps going up that would have been from the professor's stairwell there. So it was quite exciting seeing all these bits and pieces. And then it comes to our finds. Once we have all these sort of brick walls, the area seems to be, the whole area once again seems to be backfilled with this really loose rubble, and it is just chock-a-block of building material. There was lead from windows, we've got the weights from sash windows, we've got heat-affected tiles, we had doorknobs, a key, glass bottles, and my favourite bits though were the Bunsen burner, and also a lid from one of the chemical jars, which was made in a factory in Aberystwyth on the River Thames. It was quite a famous factory for producing bottles and things for chemistry labs and stuff like that. So it was quite nice doing a bit of research on that area. And we also had lots of burnt wood as well in there. So I think this deposit, these finds, I think actually are possibly from the fire, at the time of the fire, especially with the heat effectiveness of it. But I don't think the actual deposit is in situ. So I don't think during the fire it's all collapsed in and it's been left there. And the reason why is the material that it was in, it was really churned up, and it wasn't sort of very ashy or charcoaly, which I would sort of expect. I wasn't coming out of after a day there looking like I'd been in the mines really, and I think I would have expected a bit more sort of stratigraphy, which showed me maybe a collapse of a floor or something like that. And so it's really churned. So I think maybe post-fire, it did take a long time, I think, for them to rebuild the college because of the financial issues. And so maybe this was material that was somewhere else, and when they went to redo up that area, they've just moved it and put it into this area. It also doesn't look like it's been walked into those walkways. I think it has been from the level that I was working at, the ground floor. I think it's all been deposited from the top over there. But once again, it's been cut into in the 20th century by manholes, pipes, water pipes and things like that. So it's quite hard to determine. Another reason why I don't think the deposit is in situ from the fire, because we also had these interesting finds. So the newspaper, that's only a small sample of what we got, but we've got a range of newspapers that dated from the early 1900s, latest one 1910, talking about the Boer War and other things like that, and this was found within the deposit, and this dates to 15 years after the fire itself, and we would expect it to be if it was in situ sort of collapse, I would expect it to be in a worse condition than what we actually found those in. And then also in the rubble on the other side of the area, we found this dress, which I think I've never been spooked by an object before, and I don't really get spooked, but yeah, it was quite alarming finding that, and it was trying to stop the construction workers from all trying to try it on, which was, quite hard. But, so this was found amongst the rubble. And once again, if this was material that had all just collapsed in from the fire, we wouldn't expect it to be in that good condition. And the university do now have that, and so hopefully that will be part of the exhibition when they're there. And it had a pinny as well. That's what the purple bit is with it as well. And it's quite interesting. It was found in the area which, on Seddon's proposed plans, was the kitchen area and storage area, and where and had steps going down to the sort of servants' quarters at the time. So that's why I don't think it's in situ material, but I think actually the finds are possibly collected from actually from the fire, because a lot of it's heat affected. But it's quite nice, as the other talks have said. You don't really get many artefacts in West Wales, especially from prehistory. And I work on a lot of prehistoric sites. So it was great finding all this stuff. And it was really nice as well to see the construction workers were really engaged in this sort of stuff as well. They were sort of doing my job for me, going through all the material. So it was really, really nice. And they were really enthusiastic. As you can see here, some of the burnt wood. And things like that. So they should hopefully, like I said, all be on display. And as I keep going on about, we then have these later pipes from the 20th century cutting through another manhole here in the corner, which just makes it hard to sort of establish what's going on in these basement areas. So thank you very much. I hope you found that interesting. If you want to find out more, like I said before, Aberystwyth University, if you just type in Aberystwyth University or college, it takes you to their project and tells you a bit more of their plans, but also the history as well of Old College. And trust me, you go down a bit of a hole looking at it, because there's so much interesting information. And also with Andrew Scott, the building firm as well, they have something on their website as well. And I do want to thank Andrew Scott and Aberystwyth University for letting me share this information today. They're really eager for the public to know what they're doing and what we've been finding, because they've been finding it really exciting. But yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Jess, and what a fantastic project, and how fascinating to have it on the doorstep too.
Yeah.
So, any questions for Jess? The lady here.
I can't believe this, because John Seddon was a church architect, and he worked with the Leek Embroidery Society.
Yes,
and
yeah.
flying all over the place, but he was known as John Dando.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
all
all
the references relating to Old College do refer to him as John Seddon. He also built designed another building along Aberystwyth seafront as well. I can't remember what the name of it is now. But when you go down there, you notice the similarities in the designs. But I think he just thought it was a fantastic opportunity to design something.
And his sister was one of the first nuns doing embroidery.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's quite a few of them, but I thought, blimey, he's all over the place.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really, yes, right next to this lady.
I don't want to be a bossy man. Can I just draw attention to, actually, there are two completely different individuals who have been mentioned in the last 5 minutes. The Dando is Sedding, not Seddon.
Oh, Seddon, okay.
And John Pollard Seddon is the man who did the old college. So I'm sure they were friends and then met, and they were going at the same time, but they weren't the same person.
Okay.
One of the things that John Pollard Seddon was known for with the first generation of work at the old college was the use of a little-known material, an artificial stone, which is actually based on ceramic materials rather than on cement materials, called Ransom's artificial stone.
Yeah, so I actually was reading about that this week.
John Seddon was actually had chairs in Ransom's artificial stone and used quite a lot of it. And it's still there in the main staircase, just inside the inner entrance at the moment. But just as it were through the wall, from the present staircase to the part of the building where you're doing your excavations, it would be interesting to know whether he was using this really rather special and very hard and very long-lasting, but almost totally forgotten these days, material. So maybe you're keeping some of the stone rubble, which is always so much more interesting just than a stone rubble.
Yeah.
Are you, any chance that it's...
Yeah, well, I think they have. They do actually. They've had a material specialist come around and have done a key sort of report on the materials used within the building, and that's how I came across that as well. And I think I'm not sure what they've done in the rest of the building, whether or not they have been keeping that material, but I think that's what they've sort of, the materials person would be deciding what they've been keeping, but it is recorded, and I think Seddon quite liked the north wing because he did have financial control and he was told that he can use whatever materials he wanted. He got to experiment with different things and use that new sort of material.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any online questions?
Well, there's one question here.
Oh, sorry, I missed you.
As a child, I lived in Yale College, so we're talking 70 years ago. And I just seem to remember that in the quadrangle there was some mosaic in the floor. Has that been preserved?
I'm not sure on that bit. It's all been fully recorded. They are keeping original features. So when I had first come onto the site, so we've had quite a few colleagues over the couple of years working on the project, so they might have come across it. But when I was there, if I remember, it wasn't present there, but they might have taken it away. A lot of the stuff that they're conserving, they've taken it away to protect it from the building work and then bringing back in. They're doing a really good job at trying to keep as many original features as they can. And it is looking very nice.
That's reassuring
inside.
To know. Also,
yes.
My dad probably lost a few pipes down there, so if you find anything...
Were they monogrammed? Further questions for Jess? Any online questions? No. Okay. Well, in that case, Jess, thank you very much for a lovely exposition of what's going on in the Old College and the history of the Old College too. I'm just fascinated by the idea of Aberystwyth as the Brighton of West Wales.
Yes.
If only we had their climate. All shades of Sanditon, really,
Yes.
isn't it? Yeah. So thank you very much, Jess.
Yeah, so